Hi, and welcome to day 4 of the Wild Woman Journaling Challenge. I'm back. I'm still on my deck. So far, it's not too hot. And since we're in today's lesson exploring what's holding us back from being a wild woman. Oh, there goes a plane. I live right near the airport, so there's planes going across all day, and I never notice them unless I'm trying to do something like this. So let's just let it pass. Okay, it's pretty much gone now. So today, since we're exploring what's holding us back from being a wild woman, an untamed life of passion and purpose, I thought I might do a deep dive about the differences between feelings and emotions. It's been scientifically proven that everything on Earth and in our universe emits energy. Even our thoughts create energy. We're actually made up of energy that, at a lower frequency level, is heavier and more solid. That's why, if we want to reach higher levels of awareness and spiritual growth, we need to raise our vibration of energy. Feelings are direct energetic responses to experiences. They are communications from our body. Our bodies respond constantly to what's happening in and around us. Those responses take the form of feelings. Feelings are specific. That's how they're specific vibrational responses to our experiences. That's how we sense that we're in danger when we experience physical fear. In less than an instant, our radio antenna picks up the energy from threat. Our bodies feel it, our brains send out messages to be alert, and then all kinds of physical responses like dilated pupils, goosebumps, hyper-awareness, faster heart rate, acute hearing, and the flight, fight, or freeze response, as I mentioned, happen. Now, emotions are feelings that have moved from our body to our brains, our ego. Emotions are thought. A story, a belief, a pattern, or a picture that often acts as a sieve through which feelings are interpreted rather than simply felt. Our emotions often shape our reaction to the feeling energy and freeze it into rigid form so that it becomes our go-to reaction. Emotions are far less fluid, less responsive to direct experience, because we filter the interpretation of the actual experience we're having through our belief system to make it fit our expectations. Visually, I think of my brain as though my brain houses one of those old-fashioned 1950s diner jukeboxes. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but they were a thing. When an experience comes in, oh my goodness, hopefully that's not bothering you, and we drop the dime, which is the experience, into the jukebox, my fear chooses a record from my list of recorded experience, and that's the closest fit to the story or song I expect it to be. And the more times I have that experience, the bigger chance there is of the needle getting stuck like a skipping record. So when I do a Facebook Live, for example, which this is not, my past experience record starts blasting rockabilly in my brain, and I expect to stumble and falter like I have in other times, so I do stumble and falter. And because we're telling ourselves stories that fit our expectation, when something good happens, we say things like, well, that was a fluke. I couldn't possibly. It will never work. Let's see how long this lasts. And then, yes, but. And fill in the blank with whatever possible bad thing we expect to happen at any moment. We allow the joy of success or happiness to be sucked right out of us. And when we focus on the negative, more negative happens. The stories we tell about our lives allow us to see any minor setback we experience as proof that our lives are not what we want them to be, that we have no control over our life. But I'm telling you that in every moment you have a choice. Your choice is not whether or not something's happening. You can't change what is, but you can control your reaction to any given energy that you experience, any situation that arises. You can choose to take a different circuit pathway in your brain and look at whatever rises in a different way. I call this turning the prism. It allows you to see something in a different color, in a different way, rather than the colorless, narrow way you've chosen to see it 1,000 times before. I want to share something that happened to me earlier this year that illustrates the difference between love and fear and the choices we make. On this particular Saturday, it was in the winter, there was no coffee in our house, so my husband Cyril and I went out to our coffee shop for a cup of the really good stuff. As some of you may know, I think my appreciation of coffee is legend. I like it tall, dark, and strong with milk and no sugar. We got our big mugs of coffee and I went to claim our favorite spot. I had an uneasy feeling as soon as I sat down, and as soon as my husband joined me, I knew why. It was the financial conversation again. Whenever this happens, I get immediately defensive and sullen. Honestly, I don't respond. I just sit there like a moody teenager, trying not to roll my eyes, waiting for him to finish. But inside, when this happens, my guts are writhing. I felt again at this time that every single thing that had happened to bring us to living paycheck to paycheck, his paycheck, by the way, ooh, butterfly, was my fault. I used to be the major breadwinner in the family, and one year, a couple years ago, I actually became the dependent on his income taxes. But then I heard my heart say, hear him out. And I realized that he needed to get out what was on his heart too. He's not a writer, so his only way to voice his thoughts is to actually speak them. He was worried, yes, but he wasn't blaming me or saying it was my fault. That was my belief. He's been my greatest supporter. His tone softened as my face softened. And then suddenly we were talking honestly to each other, meeting in the middle rather than shouting from our corners. I'm telling you this because when we're in an emotional fear state, we close ourselves off from hurt by contracting our hearts. We get rooted in our unhappy familiar feelings of guilt and anger because he made me feel guilty. But no one makes us angry or feel guilty but us and our triggers and our conditioned responses. So when I opened up my heart and listened, a shift happened. I was able to hear his fears without feeling judged. He deserved to be heard too, and he didn't say anything that I don't say to myself every day. It felt like a turning point for me, but also for our relationships. It's always my natural reaction to push blame on the other person who's expressing his or her anger, or his or her opinion, not even anger, that relates to me in some way. However, when I do that, it just makes me feel more judged and more unworthy when I do it. I don't like that part of myself. And this awareness is helping me soften to become an observer of my own emotions in those times when I allow my triggers to make me feel judged. It allows me to open my heart and listen rather than react. Hopefully this will help you to understand a bit more about how our brains not our brains, but how our beliefs affect our emotions as you write in your journal about your fears today. If you want to explore your fears more deeply, my course, Break Free from Fear, is a 7-module exploration about facing your fears, letting them go, and taking action towards your dreams and making your dreams and passions your reality. I'll tell you more about it at the end of this course. Oh, and there's one more really critical thing I wanted to share with you about your fears. Since your emotional fears are part of your experience and your upbringing, I beg you, please don't hate your fear, talk about kicking the shit out of it or even conquering it. Your fear is part of you, and the only way we can work through our fear is by greeting it with compassion. If you're anything like me, you're probably incredibly hard on yourself already. Nothing you do is good enough. You're afraid to make mistakes, afraid to succeed, and generally feeling unworthy enough already. Instead, talk to your fear with firm compassion. I even go so far as to call fear a she. She's part of me. I still struggle with her every single day, but I know if I listened, I wouldn't be able to share this gift I have of helping people to journal. So now, I tell her to sit in the back seat. She can enjoy the ride, but I'm going to do this anyway, so she might as well just relax, look out the window, and enjoy the ride. But she doesn't get to steer where we're going. She just doesn't get to decide what snacks we're eating on the journey, and she sure as heck doesn't get to choose the tunes. Thanks for watching. I look forward to hearing what came up for you as you wrote in your journal today about your fears. Remember to share in the group using hashtag day4, no spaces, for a chance to win prizes. But more importantly, when you share, you give others the courage to speak their hearts and to feel they're not alone. Namaste. Thank you so much.